This recipe for a baked cheesecake, I've started by lining my cake tin. So this is an 8-inch square tin and I've lined the bottom and the sides because I want to be able to lift this out easily when it's cooked. I've also got my oven preheating, gas mark 160 degrees, ready for the base to go in, and the base I am going to make in my food processor. You can make this base by rubbing it in with your fingertips if you prefer, but I know this is quite a short, crumbly, very soft dough, so I'm going to use my food processor. And in my food processor I've got 175 grams of self-raising flour, 50 grams of corn flour, 175 grams of butter and 50 grams of icing sugar. And I'm just going to blitz those all together until they form a nice dough. The important thing with this is not to overdo it because you don't want a paste. You have to be able to roll this mixture out, and it is a bit like making a shortbread. So I'm just going to finish the blitzing and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, the shortbread mix has changed colour and it's starting to stick together, and I'm just going to add 1 egg yolk and a really good grating of fresh nutmeg before I get this to come together as a dough. If you don't have fresh nutmeg, you can use dried powdered, but I want a really good pinch of nutmeg in there, and because I like nutmeg, I would say that is probably more like half a teaspoon of the nutmeg. And then I'm just going to put the lid back on again and finish blending this until it forms a dough. And if you pulse it, you can see when it's nearly into a dough, and that's when you need to stop and put it out onto your worktop. When you're tipping a dough out of a food processor, it's important to remove the blades first if you can, because if they fall they are going to cause you problems. They're very sharp. And then put the rest of the mixture onto a lightly floured worktop, and I'm just going to knead this together quickly so that it forms one dough. And the advantage of doing this in a food processor is if it's a hot day, the dough doesn't get really hot and sticky. So this mixture, this cheesecake, has some of this shortcake mix at the bottom and some on the top. So I've just cut it in half, and I need to roll 1/2 out so it is roughly the size of the base of my tin. And because this is a shortcake biscuity mixture, it is very, very soft, so you need to be careful when you are rolling it out. It doesn't matter really if it splits, because this is going to be the base of the baked cheesecake and nobody will see it. It's more important that you roll the top one correctly. And to see if it's big enough, just bring your cake tin over and put it on the top. So that's big enough, and I just need to lift this up, pop it inside my cake tin. It's not landed particularly neatly, but I just need to spread it out over the bottom. And if you're worried, just do it slightly smaller, roll it a little bit smaller than the cake tin, and then once it's in there you can use your fingers and just press it up to the sides. You need to make sure that it goes right to the very edges of the tin, and then you are going to bake this blind, which means baking it without a filling in, So I've just pressed that into place. I've folded down along the edges so that I have just the pastry case in there, and I'm going to use a little bit of foil, just prick the base with a fork, put a little bit of foil on it to stop it rising too much, and that just goes into your oven for 10 minutes to bake blind. While the base for the cheesecake bakes blind, I'm just going to start on the filling. So in my bowl I have 200 grams of soft cheese, full fat or half fat, the rind of 1 lemon and 50 grams of caster sugar, and I'm just going to beat those together quickly just to make sure that they are evenly mixed. Having got that mixture smooth, I've just added 150 ml of natural yoghurt, so 1 small carton of natural yoghurt and another 2 egg yolks. So I've kept all my egg whites, so I've got 3 egg whites in a bowl, but 2 of the egg yolks are going in here, and it doesn't matter about the fact that they're going in raw because this is a baked cheesecake, so those egg yolks will be cooked before they are eaten. So that is the start of my cheesecake base. The timer has just gone, and I've taken the base out of the oven. So this, I just need to remove the foil, and I can see that inside that cheesecake has started to bake. So I'm going to put that to one side to cool while I just whisk up the 3 egg whites that I've got left. When whisking your egg whites, remember to do it in a grease-free bowl, and remember you've got to do it until you can turn the bowl upside down and your egg whites do not move. If they slip at all, then you haven't got enough air into the mixture. So having whisked up my egg whites, I now need to fold these into the cheese mixture ready to go into the oven. So I'm just going to get rid of my wooden spoon because I want to fold these in. You can, if you like, fold a spoonful in first, or you can just put it all in and spoon this over. So a spoon or a spatula, and just carefully fold this together so you've got a really nice fluffy mixture. And you need to make sure that you can't see any just egg white in this mixture, because you don't want to be eating just raw or cooked egg white. So it's a nice fluffy mix, no lumps of egg white in it. And when you're sure that that's all been folded together, that can go on top of the base. So all I'm going to do is just pour that mixture into the tin on top of the base. There we go. So I have 75 grams of dried fruit here as well, and you don't have to put this in if you don't want to. You can just leave it lemony, but you can see the fruit will sink through anyway, so you don't have to worry about folding this in. Just the weight of the sultanas, currants, whatever type of fruit you want to use, will sink down into that cheesecake mixture in the middle. And the last thing to be done before that can go back into the oven is to roll out the second half of your topping, and this time we need to be a little bit more accurate. So this has had time to rest. You can put it into the fridge if you wish to, but we need to try and keep it in a square if it's possible, because it's going to go on top of your cheesecake. When you take this out and serve it, even though I've lined the dish with greaseproof paper, around the edges the cheesecake mix does discolour a little bit. However, that means you can trim that bit off, but we want to try and make sure that we have as much of the topping covered as possible. So I'm just going to use my rolling pin as a guide, and hopefully that will be big enough. If I move this forward, just going to fold that in half for a minute, move my tin forward, and then unfold this on top of that mixture. And as I say, around the edges, does not have to be perfect. I'm just making sure that it goes and it sits on top of the cheesecake mixture. And you can trim the edges up if you need to, but that's sitting on the top of there, and this is then going to go into an oven to be baked. So same temperature, 160, gas mark 4, and it's going to take about 40 to 45 minutes to bake. And we know that it will be done when the top is nicely browned and it's firm. At the moment it's really wobbly, a bit like a quiche, but we need it to be a bit firmer when it comes out of the oven. Okay, the cheesecake is nicely browned on the top, it's risen and it's set, and you can see it just wobbles a little bit. All it needs now is to sit in the tin and cool before it can be removed. It's much easier to remove when it's cooled. And then it is dusted with icing sugar and cut into squares for serving. And there's one piece of the finished cheesecake served as you could for an exam. If you had time, you could put maybe a fanned strawberry or some fruit or a bit of coulis on here as well, possibly a jug of cream at this end.